Hello everyone, I'm Adam Papagan, and welcome to another episode of There's a Place, the ASMR talk show. The show that feels good to hear. On this show, we try to make you feel good. I feel good doing this show, talking softly. It's very relaxing. But I use it as an outlet to talk about things out in the real world, outside other places. Because there are places here, but there are places out there that are not as soft talking, that are stressful, that cause turmoil. And so tonight, maybe a negative story. I don't know. See what you think of the moral. But I started a new job recently, because as much as I love hosting talk shows, it doesn't pay the bills. So I had to pick up a day job recently. And, I've had so many jobs. I should make a list of all the random jobs I've gotten from Craigslist. Probably into the low 30s of weird jobs. It's never a straight job. If you're trying to work part-time and pursue your passion, a day job is not going to cut it. It's always something weird. So my most recent job is as a tour guide. As you might know, I do the OJ tour. I love doing that. But this is for an official tour company. And as Dirk says, a friend of the show, psychic on the Del Talk Show, Dirk, he says that I'm allergic to working. And that's really might be true. So I started this new job as a tour guide. And it's unsupervised, which is good. But the problem is you never know who's going to be going on the tour. So this past Saturday was my first day solo, and it was my job to meet 17 Australian people at the airport, show them Hollywood, and then deliver them to Anaheim, where their hotel was. So I get to LAX. This was their plan. Take a 13-hour flight from Australia to North America, then go on a 4-hour tour of Hollywood, then drive to Anaheim, middle of the day on a Saturday, so a lot of traffic. And then that would be the end of it. And that's the start of their vacation. So, already terrible plan. And these people, here's the thing about Australia. It's got a good reputation, beautiful country, very similar to America. But people forget that just like in America, once you go a little further inland from the coast, bunch of rednecks, just like in America. In Australia, instead of rednecks, they're called bogans. But these are just uncultured people. They don't know about anything, and that's the cards I was dealt this Saturday. So I pick up all these bogans at the airport, and I'm driving them around Beverly Hills, Hollywood. I'm saying, oh, this is where they do that TV show. You ever see that? No. This is where this celebrity lives. You know this person? No, never heard of him, hey? They were very impressed seeing a motorboat with a big outboard motor. But, seeing where Charlie Chaplin made his films on La Brea, not really interesting to them. So I take them all around. They were exhausted. They had a terrible time. I deliver them, and, they're tired. They've been up the whole time. They're being like, hey, it's 4:30 in the morning, our time. It's like, not my problem. So I get them down to Anaheim. They're complaining the whole way. Deliver them. Get a very mediocre tip. Because when it's, the tip is divided over 15 people, 17 people, they think a couple bucks each. That's going to add up to a lot. It doesn't. One person doing the tip, whatever. So they had a bad time. Not really my fault. Really their attitude was what was bad about it. And they went ahead on Tuesday. This was Saturday. On Tuesday, so they had a couple days to think about it, to reflect, to enjoy being in beautiful Southern California, go to Disneyland, all that. Decided to call my boss and complain. And they said that the tour was not what they were expecting. It was, they had these big dreams of America, that they were going to see all these things, all these great things were going to happen, and it didn't come true. But my argument is, if you come to LA thinking something great's going to happen, thinking that you're going to have a great time, that everything's going to be awesome, that there's going to be celebrities everywhere, and that doesn't happen, that is an authentic LA experience. So I really did show them what it's like to live here in Southern California, to be disappointed, to sit in the traffic. And yeah, I don't know. $30 tip, they could have done more. Plus I took them to eat. Like that wasn't even part of the itinerary. Whatever. Onward and upward. I always say, when I blow out candles on a birthday cake or I see a falling star, maybe my dreams are coming true, and this is the process of them coming true. This is how they come true, putting up with this muck. But only time will tell. Right now we're here in a place where nothing bad happens. So be grateful for that. My guest tonight is a comedian. So that's the female version of comedian. We'll talk about that, what that means. I don't know her super well, but she's a really sweet lady, and we'll get to know her better. Kind of new on the scene. No, well, she's not there yet, but she'll be here. Please welcome Tuesday Thomas. Hey Tuesday, how you doing?
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. And I think the proper term is just comedian.
But
because there's all that whole feminist thing, like we're just the same as everybody else. I don't care.
Okay, but formerly I would have been on the same boat. Like I would have agreed with you. But do you know Kenny Lyon?
Yeah.
Okay, he's nuts. But
Naked Kenny.
Yeah, he's nuts. Friend of the show. He's absolutely nuts. But through that nuttiness, I think comes some wisdom. As he explained it to me, a comedian is a different thing than a comedian. It's a different kind of persona. It's a different style.
See, I don't see that. I see funny as being funny, and I see funny as being subjective and relative. And I don't see a separation of the sexes as much as I do of styles.
And yeah.
I was like, when I first started, I'm new to LA, not to the scene in general, but when I first started, I would go to these female-only open mics, and they just didn't work for me. See, I'm the kind of person where I want to be around all kinds of people to get all kinds of experiences. And I've never been comfortable in just a white neighborhood or a black neighborhood or a gay club or a straight club. I want everything because I grew up in New York, and that's how it is. Everything's all together. So where was I going? Oh, so the female open mics. Just, wasn't getting what I needed. And there was something off, and I spoke to another female comic friend of mine, and she's like, I don't go to them. And I'm like, why? I mean, give me your reasoning. And she says, because it's a male-dominated world at this point, and I want to make it, so I have to learn how to play that game. Does that make sense?
It does, but I feel like a comedian is playing in that world. Like, do you like Joan Rivers?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. All of her humor is like slut-shaming, is like boys club, like I can hang with these guys.
Don Rickles, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Yeah.
Lisa Lampanelli, very similar.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, and any male comedian would be like, oh yeah, they're the best, because they kind of fall into this thing. So then it becomes this issue of, do you want to try to do your own thing and like it might not work, or do you want to follow this pattern that people like Joan Rivers and Lisa Lampanelli have set?
Oh, I see what you're saying, and I don't think that. I think that's the old way. I think the whole thing is now is be yourself. Be yourself and go out and just show them. Don't just go to female-only open mics. Don't be in female-only shows because, just be your authentic self and get out there wherever you can and show them that you're funny. I think that's more of what I meant and she meant by it's a man's world. You have to be in it. I have a whole problem with isolation and people creating their wombs and only staying in them, and I think a lot of that is happening now, not just in comedy, especially in comedy, but in other aspects of life too. People don't want to be, I don't want to be hurt. Oh my God, they said something that hurt me. And so I'm only going to perform in this little area, like the east side or the west side or, wherever. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think sometimes you got to take a few beatings, and I'm not advocating for people to be able to say the N-word and to be able to slut shame and to be able to do those things. But I'm saying all that stuff has gone way too far in my opinion. The politically correct has been pushed, the yin has been pushed to the yang, and it has an effect. Words, like for instance, I do this bit about PC, and my thing is I start out with, I was talking to somebody and I said, I have a friend who's a bartender in a fag bar, and they're like, oh, you can't say that. That's homophobic. You can't say fag. I'm like, okay. He's a beverage maintenance engineer for the sexually dysfunctional. Then I say, I told somebody I live in the hood or in the ghetto. You can't say ghetto. That's cultural appropriation, that's racist. All right, well, I live in the newly designated historic district with lots of character that none of you fuckers will care about until the Trader Joe's moves in. But I think that can be pushed too far, because I end that bit with, how long is it? You have to be careful, because sooner or later it's not going to be cops are killing innocent young black people. It's going to be the government-sponsored peacekeepers are participating in the minority Hunger Games.
Exactly.
You have to be very careful with all that. And that's what happens when they create these wombs. These little areas where, female-only open mics or hipster-only areas where we're not going to can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. It's a trigger word, it's this.
It doesn't serve anyone.
I don't think so. I think that we need, this is a dated reference, but I think we need Archie Bunkers in the world to know who the enemy is. Donald Trump is obvious. Ted Cruz, not so much. We need to know. I'd rather know who the bigots are, than to have them hiding. Because if you outlaw words and you outlaw sayings and you can't do this, it just pushes the hate deeper inside of somebody, and it's got to come out somewhere else. We have to educate them through comedy, is what I do, or in other ways to stop the hate.
What are other ways besides comedy?
I think hate comes from a lack of education. I think it's the basis is desperation, and it starts with a lack of education, not being aware of other cultures, not being aware of other things. Institutionalized poverty, institutionalized racism gets people in those little areas and gives them a scapegoat. They don't know any better. I was lucky enough to have be brought up by my stepfather, but he took us places when he had a vacation. At 7 years old, I was flying from New York to Phoenix, Arizona. We went on trips. I saw different cultures. And it's like I always use this example. You know how Asian people, when you're in a line and they're like right up on you, they're housing me. There's a reason, because a lot of times where they come from, even if they're not first generation, it's built in, but the areas they come from, they have to be pushy to get what they want, or they're not going to get it. And there's not a lot of area, so they're used to being like that. They just don't know. So people will turn around to them and say, get the hell away from me, stop it. I turn around and say, it's okay, there's plenty for you. We can have a little space here. But when you understand different cultures, I think that helps stop the hate. And we're not doing a good enough job. In my opinion, it started with Reagan and the tax cuts for the education. He cut education, he declared ketchup a vegetable, and over the years he chipped away at it more and more, so now we have this for lack of a better word, ignorant generation that grew up, and they don't, and I'm not excusing it by saying they don't know any better, because sometimes when you get to be an adult, you should know better. But I do think that that's where a lot of the hate comes from.
But isn't
ignorance.
that only one kind of hate? Like, if you're educated, do you not have a right to hate something?
No, you do. You do. And I think that's a different kind of hate. I think the basis for hate is taught as a child, whether you believe it or not. You can be very well educated, but there's something that happened. Children are very innocent. And if you might have had an uncle who hated a certain thing, and it pounded into your head subconsciously, you know, because he didn't have education enough or wasn't around the cultures. It's a lack of understanding, I think hate is, which education cures the lack of understanding, some type of education.
Well, you seem very worldly. You've been to Phoenix, Arizona as a child, as you said. There's nothing you hate? What do you hate? You have to hate something.
I don't really hate anything. I am a New Yorker, a native New Yorker. I get very annoyed sometimes, but I get annoyed at lack of common sense. You know, when I look at somebody and I know that they can do better, and they're just not trying, and it's just a lack of, it's a selfishness or lack of common sense. I'm just like, you know, that's what I get more annoyed with. I think when I was younger, I probably had a lot of hate in my heart. And as you go through bad experiences, I mean, I've been through some horrible experiences in my life, and that brought up hate. And that also led to disease. And I learned that you have to let that go. You have to let it go and be healthy, and you have to forgive the people who did this to you. You know, everybody is on different levels of what they're capable of. And you have to realize that. I think once I realized that, and saw in other people what they're capable of, it was easier for me to accept them and know where to put them in my life. Because when you're young, you think everybody can do things the same way you do, is capable of the same things, not physically either, physically, but also mentally and spiritually. You know, whatever your spirituality is, and that's not true. There's people that, you know, are, I don't want to say inherently evil, but have evil in them. But you don't see that when you're younger necessarily. You think everybody has the same heart and soul as you, and the same experiences. I mean, growing up in New York, that really, I think, has helped me survive through everything. Because, you know, when you're young, you think the whole world is the same as what's around you. And so as I grew up and moved away or met other people from different places, and I would say, oh, I gotta go up to Harlem to see a friend, and they'd be like, what are you going up there for? Oh my God, that's so scary. And I'm like, not to me. I didn't understand it. Then I realized, well, they grew up somewhere else where, you know, they'd heard stories, or probably to them it is quite frightening. So I think that's really helped me achieve a lot in life.
So, growing up in New York, were you there in the 70s?
It's when it was bankrupt. It's before
Right.
Disney. It's when there were the sex shops and movie theaters everywhere.
In Times Square.
Yeah, it was Taxi Driver.
Yeah, you hear
Taxi
about
Driver.
You hear about that time. It is depicted in films like Taxi Driver, Urban Cowboy.
Yeah.
That's the one. I get that and Midnight Cowboy confused. Urban Cowboy's the good one.
Urban Cowboy. Yeah.
What's the one with John Voight?
It's Midnight Cowboy.
Midnight. That's the good
with
one.
Dustin Hoffman. That's
Got
the
it.
good one. That's
Urban
when
Cowboy's
it came out.
John
It was
Travolta.
X-rated.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But back then, X was like, because they didn't have R. That's kind of like spin.
Yeah.
But anyway, it seems kind of, and then, you know, like the birth of punk and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It seems kind of romantic. It's romanticized. The blight.
You know.
And the danger.
It's. Yeah, I think about that a lot, because in the East Village was like Beirut. I mean, the buildings were just crumbling. I mean, the new wave movement, new wave, not the music, but the new
The
wave
cinema. Yeah.
was, that was the East Village. I mean, people were just homeless, and they would get into these bombed out, burnt down buildings and squat, and they get together, and they, it was harrowing to go down the street to get what you need. People stole things to sell to get film, and when you're in it, it's very exciting. You're accomplishing something, and so when you've lived through that and you see how easy it is now, and how different it is, where it's all frat boys and girls, and that's basically what the East Village is now. It's the Yoo-hoo girls, and it's easy to romanticize that. It is, because it was more creative. It was harder. It made us different. It made us survivors. We weren't given things. So there's I don't know if there's a lot of jealousy because now everybody's handed everything who lives there, or if it's just like, no, I think we in general have a better soul because of what we had to go through. I mean, I remember walking through Alphabet City, and do you know what Juicy Juice is? Juicy Juice is a little fruit drink. It's like those juice boxes, but back then they were the little plastic barrel bottles. And, they'd be filled with water every so often, and if you knocked one over, you could get beat up because they were out there for the junkies in the alley to come and pull from so they could shoot up. And if you happen to kick one over, you got people chasing you.
What was the worst thing you ever saw at that time in that place?
I remember walking over a dead body and just being like, oh, it was like a greenish blue. Been there a little bit. Who knows how it happened, but things don't faze you, though. I mean, you see it. I would walk from throughout the city at night, and I remember coming from the West Village and coming up back, trying to get back up the 14th Street and walking by little, the meat packing district, which is now all Alexander McQueen and Apple stores. But back then, they literally at like 4:30 in the morning stopped where Chelsea Piers is, down a little bit below, and there was a ship, and the cattle and the pigs would come across, and they'd slaughter them right there. They had them on the hooks. 6:30 in the morning, the butchers and the bloody were hosing down the things, and that's where that I just went out of my head, but that Al Pacino movie, Cruising, about that gay S&M clubs, they were right there, so you'd get the guys all dressed in leather coming out, the butchers. You can't see that kind of realness.
Exactly.
It's manufactured now. I mean, that was real. That was people really, because everything had to be so underground, and the city was so tense. You really didn't know if you had a future. So it was everybody talks about being in the moment. That was really in the moment. Those guys were beating the hell out of each other, dressed in leather and having gay sex there, and then the butchers didn't care because they had their things, and it's strange, to see when I go back and to see what that's become. I mean, Chelsea was just nothing like it was. Martha Stewart's the one who made Chelsea what it is by buying that building and redoing it, and that was the rebirth of Chelsea. I mean, we used to just hang out with all the punks down in Tompkins Square Park, go to CBGBs. I remember, talking to Marky Ramone, and what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I was just up on 2nd Avenue. I needed some money, so I let this guy blow me, and you did what you had to do. Nobody batted an eye. Nobody cared. I think even at that time, among people right in the city, there was more acceptance. I mean, it was after Stonewall, before gentrification, so it didn't care nobody really cared if you were a punk or gay or whatever you were. Everybody just ended up, our paths always crossed. And we were just like, hey, You're in the same boat. You're in a bankrupt city with me. It's dangerous. What do you want to do? You know, you never know who you were going to hang out with.
Well, then, sounds great. Why did you leave?
Well, I mean, by the time I left, it was cleaned up, and, you know, Rudy Giuliani, really his quality of life campaign, and I, you know, at my age now, I understand quality of life. You know, you want a little peace and quiet sometimes. Everybody's entitled to that. I accept that. But he took his quality of life campaign as an excuse to, like, totally wipe out all that stuff. He would do things like, there were little bars in the East Village that still cater to, you know, sexual peccadillos, or, you know, certain gay type nights or whatever, but it's still like everybody went in and witnessed it. But they were dive bars, and that was kind of what, because the big clubs were closing, they were going after like the limelight for drugs, and, you know, everything was closing like that, so they went into these little bars. None of these little bars had a cabaret license. They didn't need one. They didn't have a dance floor. But he would send undercover cops into them, and if somebody put a quarter in the jukebox, played a song, and somebody started dancing, oh, I'm shutting you down. You don't have a cabaret license, and you're allowing dancing. So he used that to the extreme. And then I also understand you have children. People want to go to church. So you don't want a sex shop right next door. But he took the area where you can't have a sex shop. The radius was too broad for New York City, because that meant you pretty much can't have a sex shop anywhere or an adult theater anywhere, because pretty much every block and a half there was either a school or a church or both.
So,
and then Kmart came in, the Home Depot there. You know, all this stuff started. The Limelight building is now a mall. It's, you know, it changed. And some people still love it. Some people still, I mean, there's still a lot of culture there. But, you know, the people that, the artsy people, and that's what happens. And it's happening in San Francisco now, because I just lived up there as well before I came here. They're all pushed to the borders. So now they were, then they went to Williamsburg. Now they're even being pushed farther outside of Williamsburg. And so, I mean, the city doesn't have a soul anymore. It used to have a soul, and it doesn't have a soul. I came to LA. I was in San Francisco, and San Francisco's losing its soul, because I witnessed New York doing it. I came to LA because LA has no soul. I knew what I was getting into. I was okay with it.
LA is in that process now, though, of just becoming a bunch of Whole Foods and condos that are under the height limit to put in steel buildings.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but all the housing they're building now, only 3 stories, because more than that, they have to put steel in, and then they got to drill down. It's a whole thing. So it's really like a stopgap solution. You might be a jinx for cities.
I might be.
For the grime.
I might be, yeah. San Francisco's insane though right now. I mean, I don't think in LA we'll encounter the particular problem I'm going to speak of for quite a while. But in San Francisco and New York, I don't think they're realizing is because they're making tax breaks for the big companies, and you know, they're wanting them in, and then they don't pay taxes, and they're supposed to help build up the neighborhood, but they don't really contribute to the neighborhood. But what they're doing is they're making the prices so high that your Starbucks, people who work at Starbucks, your baristas, your maids, your taxi drivers, your service people that you need to survive, rich people, you need people to wait on you. But you're pushing them farther and farther away, and eventually they're not going to want to work in the city. They're going to find something closer to them. So what are you going to do, rich people? I know you're selfish. Think about yourself when you're...
Well, then they'll leave, and the city will become like New York was in the 70s when all the rich people left. And then it'll be cool.
Well,
they'll have a great comedy scene, great music scene.
Hopefully, yeah. New York still has a great comedy scene. The comedy scene in San Francisco's always been great.
Has it?
Always been, yeah. I mean, that was Lenny Bruce. He was there. You know, he performed at the Hungry Eye, the strip club that his mother had. And, you know, then he started performing at the Purple Onion down the street. And Bob Newhart started there. Phyllis Diller started there. You had a lot of people start in San Francisco. And the funny thing about San Francisco is there's still a lot of great comics, but nobody makes it until they leave San Francisco. Then they come back and live there, you know, but it's a great incubator. There's some really good stuff up there, but it's still, it's a small pond, you know, and there's only so many big fish that can fit in a small pond. That's why I left there. I wanted to be in the ocean. I don't necessarily want to be the biggest fish in the ocean, and I don't know if I will be the biggest fish in the ocean. I don't have delusions. I just wanted to be able to be a fish in the ocean and swim around and do what I pleased instead of being suffocated. And so when you get into these small communities, there's rules, there's unwritten rules, and if you don't follow them, then you're kind of ostracized. You can't do my show because she's this, or like. When I started in San Francisco, I did open mics every night of the week, and I took improv, and I went up through 4 levels of improv. I didn't take improv because I wanted to do improv. I wanted it to help my comedy. And it did tremendously. It got me farther in comedy in a shorter time. And I'm grateful for it. But I had people in the improv scene say, "You're really good. I'd have you on my team, but you're a stand-up." And I'd have stand-up people say, "You're not a purist. You're taking improv." And I'm like, it all helps each other. What is your problem?
Exactly. Well, it's, you know, I feel like people who are funny, who are good at something, they don't care either way.
I didn't.
And it's only people who are in those small communities who put the restrictions on.
Yeah, because they don't want people different or better than them. They want to rule it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people like that, I'm just like, you guys have a good time. Maybe I'll see you sometime in life. Maybe I won't, but have a good time at it.
So talk about coming to LA, because you haven't been here that long, right?
2 years now.
2 years, that's not that long.
No.
In LA terms. Average is 5 to 7.
Yeah. And then people run. I think a lot of people run at 2, and then they run again at 5 or 7.
So
I think that's what I heard.
So talk about coming here, what you've heard about it, how it's different.
I lived here for a short time back in, was it 2007 or 8, when the housing market blew. The banks were closing. I couldn't get a job because it was a writer's strike. I couldn't get a job anywhere. Every out-of-work actor and reality TV had just started getting big. So there were not a lot of acting jobs. The writers were on strike. Everybody was poor, losing their house. It was just horrible. And I couldn't do it. And so I left. And I told myself someday I'm coming back. But now I know what LA is like, and I'm going to do it the proper way. So this time in San Francisco, I came down here once a month, stayed with some friends who were gracious enough to say you can crash on our couch. I'd come once every 4 to 5 weeks. I'd book myself at a club. I would book myself, doing background acting, or just come down to do open mics. And I did that for a year. And then, within that year time, I was down here with 3 weeks worth of work every month, as opposed to, and 1 week work up there. So it just flowed and it was natural. I'm like, okay. And so then for the first year, I'd go back up there every 4 to 5 weeks, do some work and make some money. I produced a show at the Punchline that sold out. I had done that for 3 years, so I continued that for another year. And then it just got busier and busier here, where it's been a year since I've been back up there. Because it's, I just don't have the time. Just good.
Yeah, so you're making it work.
Yeah.
You got that hustling from all the cities.
Yeah, I used to take the mega bus up there.
Ooh, the megabus is, every time I take the megabus, I'm like, this is going to be the one that rolls over on the freeway that you hear about.
Yeah.
I'm on that one.
Yeah, this is going to be one where somebody just goes postal and...
I'm on the top deck. That's where, when it flips over, that's what's going to get smashed first. This is it.
Exactly. I'm always on the top deck. I could never be on the bottom. Like on airplanes, I have to sit near the back.
What? See, I sit on the top, too. And I feel like most people would want to sit on the top because it's kind of novel. You know, you can sit on the ground floor of a car, in any car.
Yeah.
What's the mentality that leads people to just sit on the bottom of the bus?
I don't know. See, my thing is I don't care about the novelty because I've traveled in many different things. I'm claustrophobic. I have really bad anxiety, can turn into agoraphobia, and an offshoot of your anxiety can be bouts of claustrophobia. So it's just like with that roof and knowing there's people on top of that, I can't. I feel closed in. On the top, I look out, I can see there's a lot of space. There's not another car right next to me. It's more comfortable for me. I don't know why people would want to be on the bottom, though. I don't know. Sometimes there's fights for it.
It's a crazy world we live in.
Have you ever gotten one of the deals?
Oh, yeah.
The dollar tickets?
Yeah, uh-huh.
I have too.
$13, I think.
I got, one time I went twice in 1 month. I had to go back and forth to San Francisco. And one time it cost me $2.35 or $2 in tax, whatever the tax was. And the other time it was $6 in tax because I got it so far ahead. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How can they do that?
Because they make all the money up with the people who book it last minute, but that's still only $30. So yeah, it's I don't get it. And then they have to pay those settlements when the buses do flip over. So I don't know how they have enough money.
They go. I think they were opening up a Phoenix to somewhere route, and when they opened up that route, you could go all the way on Megabus, all the way around the country. Not that I would want to do that. But
I think it would be cool. I've always wanted to take the Greyhound across country. That seems so sketchy. It seems like such like
they stop everywhere.
Yeah. And then people who get out of jail take the bus and they steal from you. That seems like, you know, like I could gain years of experience, of like world experience. Like I could live an extra 5 years and experience by going on that.
I drove myself across country 7 times. It's brutal. The first few times I was like, oh, I'll take my time and I'll see this and that. The last few times, the last time I did it, I drove 13.5-hour days and made it in 3 days.
That's a pretty good time.
Yeah.
Most I've ever driven was 12 hours straight.
Oh, it was horrible. I just want to get there. I remember the first time I did it, I left New York, and I think my first stop was outside of Indianapolis, and I had gone past Indianapolis and stopped because I was just like, oh, I'll just find a hotel wherever, a motel wherever, and I pulled outside of the city, and I walked into this place, and I walked in, and there's like a young kid that's gonna check me in, and there's a window behind him, and all you see is cornfields. That's all you see. And the kid's on the phone, right? And he's like, yeah, don't worry. Yeah, she just walked in. No, I'll take care of it. Don't worry. She'll never know. Yeah, she's here. Okay. And he hung up. I freaked out. I'm like, are you talking about me? Because in my weird mind, I'm thinking, it's fucking Malachi. He's going to check me into the hotel. I'm going to die. And this poor kid, probably an after-school job, just looked at me and was like, no. I'm talking about my sister. She's taking a nap in the back. I flipped out on this poor kid. I'll never forget it.
That's tough. Hey, at least you got to leave that town. That's his job. Speaking of jobs, looking at your IMDb before the show, doing a little research. Supreme Justice with Judge Karen.
Yeah.
I've done that show.
Haven't you?
They'll let anybody do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's weird because you gotta kind of audition for it.
Kind of audition is the key word.
And the funny thing was, they're like, okay, do this improv thing. And then I get a call the next day, oh, we want you on it. But it was one of the producers who wasn't even at the table. He just saw my picture and was like, oh, she'll be perfect. A great guy. I'm still friends with the guy who was a producer. And it's just so bizarre. What was your case?
Ours was, I was a falconer, and the falcon was supposed to do like pest control on a golf course, and a lady killed the falcon because she liked ducks, and I was suing her for killing my falcon. But then and I had to learn a lot about falconry. It's like $50 for the day. Like it's like minimum wage basically.
Yeah.
I had to take off work to do the show, so I lost money doing it. I was happy to do it because it was a weird thing. But so I had to learn a lot about falconry and the history of falconry as an ancient tradition and all this stuff. Wow. And then the judge sided with the lady because she liked ducks. I was so mad. I felt like my falcon really was killed.
Yeah, yeah. Ours was I was only there 2 hours.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah, it was easy. I owned a dance studio. And I was kind of stuck in the 80s. You know, it was a dilapidated dance studio. I'm stuck in the 80s. And this woman who bought a year's worth of lessons for her daughter was suing me for her money back because she said I wasn't good and I never put her daughter in any recitals and, that kind of thing. And I was just like, I just had so much fun. I'm like, oh, I taught Gregory Hines. I taught Danny Terrio from Dance Fever. I taught Barishnikov. I taught Barishnikov. And I'm just going on and on about that. And, perhaps you're a creature. What did I say at one point when she's talking about her daughter? I said, the judge said, how hard was it to teach her daughter? I'm like, Your Honor, imagine, if you will, teaching Optimus Prime how to twerk. And I won the case.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. The fun thing is when you have to do the thing afterwards where you face each other. She went first and she says, I hope you're happy stealing money from adults and dashing children's dreams. And I went, my dear, I certainly hope you have a lot of backyard barbecues because teaching your daughter how to flip burgers is the only way she's going to get ahead in life.
That's the strangest. Do you know how that entertainment studios, do you know how that works?
Yeah, it's
Byron Allen. And then he buys the programming to sell advertising on it.
They call him the Walmart of court shows because he flips them so much. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Comics Unleashed.
Yes.
He does that too. Mm-hmm. Did you get to walk across the Comics Unleashed stage?
Yeah.
That's my dream as a comedian.
To be on Comics
Unleashed.
To
do Comics Unleashed.
That's funny. That's such a bad show.
I know. It's like, that's why he does the court shows, so he can host a fake, I'm into fake talk shows, Larry Sanders, and I do.
Yeah, I love it. Well, as you know.
Mm-hmm. So you have a fake talk show. You're like, I'm into that. That's the ultimate fake talk show because the guests don't even realize. So you can get, they pay the audience to be there.
Yeah.
They don't even feign.
I get those notices on
SRO
LA casting.
Yeah. So I did the audience for Comics Unleashed once. And one of them had a somewhat well-known comedian on it, but it was 4 shows in a row. It was brutal. And for the most part, it was comics I've never seen before, never seen around, whatever, people from out of town.
No, it's on at 1:35 in the morning. What show comes on at 1:35?
It's nuts. It's so bizarre. So this guy was on, and he was trying to do Byron Allen just does their setup, and then they're supposed to deliver the punchline it's conversational, so it never works, it never lands. So the guy is Byron Allen's okay, applaud. All right. So he sets him up, and then the guy does it. He's Byron Allen's do it again, and the comic is sorry, I'm not used to being fake, and the audience is ooh, and then Byron Allen is hey man, I'm trying to help you. get you out of the club so you don't rot to death. And then like the audience was like, woo, like it got like a better reaction, like people started applauding and stuff.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it was wild.
Great.
But that's my dream as a comedian.
That's what everybody
Comics
needs to
Unleashed.
dream.
Yeah.
Everybody. That's done. I don't live too far from that whole studio. setup
Culver
over
City.
there, Yeah, it's crazy.
Audience to the hacky club comedian who's getting shit from Byron Allen.
When before I started out my show, Freak Show, at a small venue, and to try to fill seats, there's a place called Fill a Seat, where you can say, I have 8 tickets, and they just give them to people. Whoever signs up comes up and does it. And I had some good comics on that night too. I had Ida Rodriguez, I forget who else, but some good, Aya's been on Last Comic Standing. She tours nationally. She's been in a couple movies. She's amazing. And I had some of the local big names on, and it was a great show. Everybody left. And there's this one woman that came from Philistine that had a cane and, mobility scooter and the whole 9 yards, and she didn't. So it's just, people leave my shows. I stand there. I hope you had a good time. Thank you for coming. I say that to everybody. I was brought up very polite. And as I said that to her, she goes, I did not have fun. I did not. And I know comedy. I watch Comics Unleashed at 1:35 in the morning on whatever night it comes on. So I watch that every time it comes on. It's on 1:35 at 5 in the morning at this time. And I know comics, and none of your comics could even compare to them. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, you consider the source. I couldn't get upset, but
That woman's name was Byron Allen. And that woman's name
was Byron
Allen.
Byron Allen in drag.
Well, Tuesday, thank you so much for being on the show.
Are we done already?
We are done.
Wow, that's the quickest 45 minutes.
I know, right?
It was fun.
Crazy world we live in, as I've said before. So you have a show called Freak Show at CIA. You do shows here at Drumebox. People, Tuesday Thomas, his unique name. You can Google her. You'll find stuff. But thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you. At Mama Warns Me with my Twitter.
That's right. Check out Twitter. Tuesday's name is right here. And thank you all for watching or listening, if that's how you do it. Until next time, this is Adam Papagan reminding you that there's a place you can go, and it's your mind. Good night.